You're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundaram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case,
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Kelly Ann Thomas. Kelly leads a team of global commercial managers at GE Digital, working across teams to deliver outcomes for customers on their digital industrial journey. Kelly and the team drive deals forward from business development through pricing, proposal, and contracting. Day to day, her team applies APMP and Lean best practices to improve results for internal and external customers. Kelly is an enthusiastic convert and practitioner of Lean and is passionate about driving outcomes with a commitment to candor, inclusion, and diversity. Kelly is the chair of APMP Lone Star Chapter Board, and her favorite part of her role is being a mentor and coach to team members and using lessons learned to improve her business and the chapter members. Kelly is also winner of 2020 40 Under 40 APMP class and serves as the co-chair of GE Digital Women's Network. Welcome, Kelly, to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Kelly, where were you born? And let's talk about your high school and education.
Sure. So I am Canadian originally, which some people may not know about me. I was born in a city called Calgary, Alberta, which most people probably don't know, with the exception of the fact that it held the 1988 Olympics. So that's, and I lived there for a while, spent some additional time in Vancouver. And as for my high school, I went to a high school called Henry Wisewood, which is not very exciting. I'm sure most people don't know it. And in terms of schooling and further education, I have a bachelor's in political science and history.
Got it. You know what you said? You said the Olympics 19. That's the very first time, TVs were in common in India where I was brought up. And I actually saw the 1988 100-meter final. Was it Ben Johnson?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I very, very, very vaguely remember the athlete, but that was for some reason. And he's a Canadian, right?
Yeah, he is. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. See, I'm at least connecting you. And probably,
I like it.
Thank you. Most probably Calgary and other places. I'm sure people will now get to know Calgary and the schools, Kelly, because of you. That's great. So, how was Canada when you were growing up?
It was great. I mean, I am now in the US. I'm based out of Dallas, Texas, but I love Canada. I would go back any day. Most of my family is still there. It's a beautiful country, and in particular, if anyone has ever been to Vancouver, another home of another set of Olympics, that's probably one of my favorite places on earth, because in the same day, you can go skiing and you can go swimming at the beach. Depending on the weather. So it's it's a great place to live, lots of outdoor activities and great people.
Is it because ice melts so quickly that you could swim? Or
Close. I mean, I will say Vancouver is not very used to snow. So you do have to go up towards Whistler, and there's some other mountains that are about an hour away that you can go skiing. But anytime the mainland gets snow, even if it's a centimeter or an inch, people are going to be calling in sick because they have no idea how to drive in it.
That's not far off from the English. We can relate to it big time. Every year we have the same thing. To be honest, we actually compare to Canada. Okay, look at Canadians. It's minus 10 degrees or 12. They all are happy there. Look at us. Minus 1 degree and the whole transport stops. And I'm sure many of the English listeners can relate to it. Yeah. That's great. I think before we move on, I had it for round 3, but I'm going to ask it. What do you think are the differences or similarities between Canada and US?
I don't know that there's a lot of differences. I think it's just different. Well, politics obviously are a little bit different, but no one wants to get into that conversation. And just little, I guess, focus on little things, right? I mean, we have, I don't know how to say it. We have to edit this one out. I don't want to insult anyone. What I will say between moving between the US and Canada, one, people in terms of being friendly and being welcoming are the same in both places. And I would say I like focusing on what's the same between countries rather than differences.
Mm.
So I will say, especially in Texas, for those who haven't been here, I have met some of the friendliest and most welcoming people in Texas. And same thing when I lived in Oregon, and same thing when I lived in Vancouver. There's just, when you are not from the area, I find as someone who has moved quite a bit, people are very welcoming if you are willing to reach out. And so I would say that is the same between both countries. You just have to be willing to reach out.
Totally. And I have to say, Justin Trudeau is super popular in Asia.
Yeah.
For various reasons, good-looking guy, politics aside. That's one reason why I want to enter politics. That's okay. We will get there.
I have a political science degree, so I understand. I'm always fascinated by politics. More as I think it comes from a people watching aspect as well. I just find it fascinating to sit back and watch.
Yeah, totally. My uncle used to be a minister back in India.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I think I go for the recording. One of the sacrifices that I need to go is by marrying a Japanese girl is letting go of my political career. My wife hates it. Even if I tell her I'm going to stand as a counselor in UK, she just said, "You're going to leave me first before you do that." I'm like, "Damn it." But one day, Kelly, one day. So that's good. So high school and college, where was the college? University?
In Calgary. I went to the University of Calgary.
Got it.
And then you mentioned in my profile as well, I spent a little bit of time in China as well, the University of Shantou.
Got it. Why?
I did an exchange program in China. That was a communications exchange program, which was fascinating. It was an incredible experience. And for anyone either has kids in university or has gone through a university exchange program, it was probably the best experience I could get. Just getting introduced to another culture, living in it, experiencing it fully was fascinating. And I would go back to China any day.
So where is this university? Is it southern part of China?
It's about an hour's flight from Hong Kong, Shantou University. It's actually, it's a private university, and it is fully English speaking. And it's funded by, I don't remember a gentleman. It's someone who is very rich over in China. And he funded it as a way to give back to his hometown where he was from, Shantou. And so it's a really nice kind of memorial and way to give back to his community.
Got it. Do you still remember any Chinese? Do you want to try?
No, I do not.
Yes, yeah.
I did attempt. I mean, I know a little bit here and there. I can ask you for a beer, or I can ask you to get me some food, but that's about it. And I did attempt to go back and learn a little bit more Mandarin, but it definitely did not stick. It's languages are not. I'm not great at languages.
Got it. Yeah, I think while you were talking, all I was hearing behind the scene is Tsingtao beer.
Yes, yeah, I've had a few of those, certainly.
For some reason, that was just repeatedly somebody was whispering Tsingtao beer. But that's good. So was it from Calgary that you went to Shantou University, or was it after?
It was during that period. So spent most of my university in Calgary, and then went over for an exchange program, and then came back and finished in University of Calgary.
Got it. So what was your first job? Was it during, before, after university? Do you remember?
Oh, my very first job was when I was quite young, and I worked at a hot sauce stand at a farmer's market. Which is funny because for the longest time I did not like spicy food, but it was owned by a family friend, and so I worked at the hot sauce stand. That was my first job. It was not my favorite, but it was it was a good job.
So if I remember correctly, when I was in New Orleans for the APMP conference, and there was this hot stand. So primarily from the mild spicy sauce all the way to the most spiciest sauce, it will be just laid over, and you just need to try, and then you pick up the sauce what you like. Is that how the the thing works, or am I talking something completely outside here?
Oh, there is tons of varieties of hot sauce. The stand that I worked at had a couple hundred on the shelf. So different kinds of hot sauce: chipotle, green chili, hatch, habanero, all different varieties, all different spice levels. But the problem, and why I didn't stay very long, although I appreciated the family friend who gave me the job, because I couldn't really eat a lot of the hot sauces because it was just not my thing. I wasn't all that successful as a salesperson, strangely. So I guess that maybe started my journey in the way of maybe you should believe in the things that you're selling before you launch yourself into that career.
Yeah, that's it. I think you made the right. So I think when you're surrounded by spices, you will start to, hate the spice. When you're surrounded by anything too much, right? It's always hard. But that's good. From the hot sauce stand, what was the next role, or how did you enter the proposal world gradually?
Yeah. So I mean, when I was in school, I went through a couple typical school jobs, working at a bookstore, working at an amusement park for a little while. But once it came to, I don't know, real jobs, if you will, I worked at a stock exchange for a little while. Once I was out of or just finishing university, worked there printing stock certificates, interestingly. And which scared me a little bit away from the stock market. So business, that kind of business anyway, was not my thing. And then I worked for the government, Statistics Canada specifically, which again was a path that I was interested in exploring as someone who had a political science background and was fascinated by politics. But I realized that experiencing those politics and the bureaucracy was also not of interest to me. That scared me away from a government job. And that's how I was kind of moved or fell into proposals, which I don't think is all that unique, oddly. I know lots of people have kind of fallen into the career. And I was just looking for something a little bit different. And there was a posting out there for a proposal coordinator for ATCO, which is a modular construction company. And I did my interview, and as part of the interview process, they had me do a SWOT analysis on a couple of their competitors. And as someone who loves research and loves writing and loves reading, I was like, this is my thing. I could do this job. And so that's kind of launched me into the proposal path. And I've really been there ever since. So it's about 10 years ago now.
Wow. So how was it? Do you have the very first proposal that you wrote, or you assisted as a proposal coordinator? Any fond memories of that?
The first experience, not so much. I feel like the other interesting thing, and I've heard this a couple times in the proposal industry, it almost seems like trial by fire. You're kind of pushed into the meat of things and you just let go. And that was very much my first experience with a proposal. I was given a proposal to an oil and gas company that was, I swear, about 400 pages of reading. And they dropped it on my desk and said, okay, go. And that was my first experience, which was an interesting bidding experience. But it reminded me of the things that I do really like. I love people. And one of the things that I love about proposals is that you get to work with people across the company that you may not have known existed. And have experience that is so different than yours. And what I get to sit down and talk to them about is something that they're passionate about. And I get to learn it and then translate it to someone else. And that is one of the best parts of working on proposals to me, is just understanding what their experience is and then translating that into a proposal. I find that fascinating.
Well said, Kelly, well said. Totally. If you're not a people person, to be honest, you cannot progress in your career. Because most people tend to talk a lot about the fonts and and how and the other things. And I switch off immediately, because end of the day, writing is okay, but it's the interpersonal skills that matters. And otherwise, you'll be just churning the same proposal all the time. Well said. So
yeah, absolutely.
So from that role, heading up global commercial managers, team of global commercial managers, talk us through your career, Kelly.
Sure. So I started at ATCO, and we were a team there of 4 people, a couple senior proposal managers, and myself as a coordinator. I stayed there for 2 years, 3 years. Then I ended up moving to another construction company, mostly because I wanted to move out of the city. And so I got a job moving from Calgary to Vancouver, doing something very similar. But being kind of a one-person proposal shop, which was also an interesting experience. Having gone from a group where you had kind of a good division of responsibilities into handling all of it was a really interesting experience. But also positive, because I was still, one of the good things about my very first proposal position is my manager at the time was an APMP member, and he was an absolute advocate of it. And so having experienced and built some of those relationships at APMP and with my first job, and then moving to my own proposal shop, I still felt supported, even though I was alone, because I had the community of APMP. And so I stayed there for a couple of years, and then I wanted a little bit more of a challenge, something outside of the construction industry. And so I got a job at a cybersecurity firm, which is very different than construction proposals. And I knew very little about IT, about digital, about any of those things. But again, kind of trial by fire, you learn very quickly. And then from there, the company was integrated or purchased by GE, and specifically GE Digital. And so I came into GE Digital through a merger. And slowly I kind of built up my network at GE, moved from just the cybersecurity side into bidding all of our products, and then moved into a more senior role. And then as of August this past year, I was promoted to lead the team. And what I will say is, one of the things it's taught me is, one, I love being a people leader, because as you said in my bio, I love being a mentor and helping the people around me. And the other thing it's taught me is that I have worked with a great team. The team of people that I work with is quite senior. And so I feel like I learn from them every day. And again, as someone who is a learner and is excited every day to pull out something new from the job, it's fascinating to me. So I love my job at Digital, and I love my team.
Totally. I'm sure the digital people will be like, yes, Kelly. Yes, yes, that's great, Kelly. What I really like about this is because obviously in Scribble, we kind of have a big flag for what we call full stack bidders, where somebody needs to go for the entire journey, not just to get stuck on proposals, from proposals to pricing to contracting. And from contracting to business development, they need to have a full handle. And it seems like your team, you have a group of people, they all have are working towards that one vision. Talk us through how you manage a team of this multi-skilled team.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, one, they're all pretty senior. And when I moved to GE, one of the things that I actually brought to GE that they weren't familiar with, or to Digital specifically, was they were not familiar with APMP. It was something that they were not a member of. A lot of the people at the organization weren't familiar. Every once in a while, you would run into someone in the commercial operations space. That's GE's name for a proposal manager. That had heard of the organization, but really weren't involved. And so one of the things that I really focused on in the 5 or so years that I have been here is introducing APMP and the best practices that the organization has to Digital. Starting with our team in the digital business, and specifically we focus on the manufacturing customers. So introducing people to some of the webinars, getting once I had started introducing the organization to APMP, we got them a corporate membership, or got GE to purchase a corporate membership for us. So everyone on the team is members of APMP, started getting them involved in their own chapters. And I am so excited to say that almost everyone on my team is now currently either certified as foundation or practitioner, or is studying for their foundation this year. And that's a really exciting thing to see. So really just introducing everyone to the organization, introducing them to the best practices and the tools that are available, as well as, quite honestly, introducing them to the the other people in the industry that feel and experience the same thing that they do. And I will say that's always been one of the most valuable things for me when I first started, was understanding that you're not alone in what you're doing and what you're experiencing, knowing that someone else, whether they're in construction, whether they're in government, whether they're in, I don't know, is bidding to some small agency somewhere for consulting services, you're probably going to see them experience the same things. They still have SMEs that won't respond to them. They still don't get executive support when they probably should. They don't get things until the last minute, no matter how organized that they are. And just knowing that there's other people out there that quite honestly haven't solved the problem that you're experiencing is helpful. And so that was really a focus for me when I came onto the organization. And since then, I know you also mentioned Lean. GE is a big proponent of Lean, and we're going through our own Lean transformation. And I would say over the last 2-3 years, one of the things that we've worked on as a team together is integrating Lean into our business practices. So how do we use the idea that when we're measuring our KPIs as a team, whether you're talking about cycle time or on-time delivery or any of those things, if we're not meeting our target, how do we rework our own thinking to say we're not meeting the target, but that's not necessarily that's not a failure. What that is an opportunity to learn. And so I think that's a continuous improvement mindset that we've kind of woven into the organization. And no matter the function, whether you're a proposal manager, we have some senior proposal managers on the team. We have a contracts manager. We have a content manager. All of those roles work together to really improve the process, and are really passionate about Lean and continuously improving the team. So I think that's critical for us.
Wow. Well said, Kelly. Well said. So, Kelly, GE Women's Co-Chair, talk us through about that.
Yeah. So that's another really exciting part of my day. I was asked last year to help relaunch the Women's Network at GE Digital, along with a co-chair of mine. And that really came out of a lot of the unrest, quite honestly, that happened over the last year. Our business, GE, for a very long time, was good at supporting employee resource groups, or ERGs, but they had kind of fallen a little bit by the wayside. And I think that our leadership at the top recognized that. And so they wanted to do an official relaunch, and not only that, really make people accountable for supporting and developing those people in their network. And so that was something that I was asked to take on, as I said, along with my co-chair. And so now we have a team of, I believe, about 16 people globally that are supporting different regions and supporting different chair programs. And we have a membership of around, I think, 800 women in the organization that we support. And so we run a number of events monthly. We run both globally and regionally. We also have a number of programs ongoing, like outreach to different communities. We have an effort called GE Girls, which supports a camp for middle school girls. And really the focus for me, and the opportunity that I get so excited about, is coming in and having someone reach back out to me from the network and saying, hey, I don't think I would have gotten this opportunity if I wasn't introduced to this person or that person through the Women's Network. And so getting that up and running over the last 6 months or so has been really exciting for me. And as I said, it's always a really exciting part of the day to see how that's going.
Brilliant, Kelly, brilliant. In addition to managing a team, supporting this, that also means that you're also a chair of the APMP Lone Star chapter. So talk us through, you did mention while you were a proposal coordinator, you came across APMP. Which year was that, Kelly?
What year is it now? It's 2021, so around 2011.
2011.
Seems like a long time ago, but yes, around 2011 is when I first started, where I was introduced to APMP. And as I said, my very first manager in the proposal space was a big proponent of APMP. He introduced me to the organization, his own team to the organization. He supported me in getting my very first foundation certification when I was a year and a half in. He supported us going to conferences and reaching out and getting to know people. And so that was a really positive experience for me. And then when I moved to Vancouver and was kind of on my own, I started getting a little bit more involved in the chapter. So first just helping with events here and there. And then I did become the secretary for the Maple Leaf Chapter in Canada. Although that didn't last as long as I would have liked because I ended up moving to the US at the time. But got some really good experience, met some really great people at the Maple Leaf Chapter. For those who aren't familiar with the Maple Leaf Chapter, it is a very broken up chapter. And by that, I mean, the members are very spread across the country. And so almost similar to the Lone Star Chapter, they have regional chairs that really manage the events for each of their regions or provinces. So got introduced to that approach in Canada. And then when I moved to the US, I was based in Oregon for a little while and unfortunately couldn't really get involved in the Pacific Northwest chapter. I was still a member for a while, but couldn't really do any outreach at that point. And then by the time I moved to Texas, I think I've been in Texas about 3 years now. And that's when I really reached back out to the Lone Star chapter. And one of the wonderful chairs that you guys have already interviewed, Sonya Wooley, who her enthusiasm is really what pulled me back into the chapter because she's wonderful. And I got involved helping her set up the regional conference that was supposed to happen last year for the Lone Star chapter, but unfortunately with COVID, that ended up not happening. But just her enthusiasm and the team that she had on the board really had me stick around. So I became the secretary for a period of time, and then I became the co-chair with my colleague Jaclyn Anderson at the beginning of this year. And I still blame or thank Sonya, depending on the day, for that when she decided to step down. So that's and although I will say, I freely admit, I feel like I haven't put as much time into the Lone Star APMP chapter as I would like, and as much effort and outreach as I would like. Part of that was because of the Women's Network at GE Digital. Part of that is because of COVID, but I'm excited to get to know the chapter better and get to know the other chapter leaders across the globe.
It takes a lot of guts, Kelly, in addition to, full-fledged team that you're managing, a team of people, managing beds and wider all the way from, pricing proposal to contracting, being also part of the GE Digital Women's Network and also being part of the Lone Star chapter. It's all amazing. I mean, only people with a big heart can actually take up these wider roles so that they could influence and inspire the future direction. But that's great. We wish you all the very best.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Both the Women's Network and your role, and also on the Lone Star chapter. So APMP 40 Under 40 Award. So talk us through being nominated this year or last year, I think, 2020. How was the experience?
Honestly, a bit of a surprise. So at the time I was a senior proposal manager on the team, or senior commercial manager. And I was responsible for a lot of initiatives associated with improvement. So one of those for the team was the implementation of what we in GE call a deal category system. So what we were finding, and what I was finding as I was doing proposals, is we as a business were really spending the same amount of time on every single proposal, no matter how good the fit was, no matter what kind of proposal we were talking about. And that inherently was taking a long time, not just for the salespeople that were getting frustrated, but for our customers. And so we implemented this deal category system, which is essentially a very simple list of questions or a tool that we implemented or input in our Salesforce, where based on the way you answer these 5 or 6 questions, it pops out what we call the deal category. And that gives us an associated SLA or turnaround time, promised turnaround time for the salespeople so that they know when to expect proposals based on the complexity of that deal. And it also helps us as a business to evaluate what we're really spending time on. And so that's a very long-winded explanation, but I think the reason that I was nominated for the 40 Under 40 award was because some of the members of the team actually were appreciative of some of the efforts in that space. And so they actually asked if they could nominate me. So completely honored by one of my team members who spent a ton of time writing an essay about me to send into APMP. And so that was a really wonderful experience to know that people on the team appreciated some of the efforts that I did. But I also certainly want to say that was not at my effort alone. There was a lot of contribution from our team and other teams as well.
Oh, that's so nice, Kelly. That's so nice. I think I was at the inaugural. She was there in 2018, I think. But yeah, I think we all have gone through that. That's great. Before I hand over to Ashley, let me ask, tell us the 3 things not many people know about you, Kelly.
Oh, okay. 3 things people don't know. So 1, I have a black thumb when it comes to plants. Do not give me a plant, I will kill it. I guarantee I will kill it. So we do have some plants in our house. My husband is responsible for watering those so that they don't die. I have a really good memory for very strange things. If you ask me about a proposal that I did 6 years ago and didn't give me much detail on it, I could probably tell you down to the pricing what it was and what was in it. But if you ask me where my keys or my wallet are, no idea. So, but good memory for strange things would be the second thing. And the third is that I am a terrible dancer, terrible, but I have fun. And generally I dance mostly to embarrass my husband. So when he's spent too long in a store or anything like that, I'll start dancing in the middle of the aisle just to get him moving.
This is by far the most unique response we got for this question, Kelly, I have to say, in 100 plus episodes. That's very good. I'm sure Ashley will test some of your memories in this. So thank you for this, Kelly. Thank you. I think we are moving into what we call rapid random fire round, or in honor of forward nut, we change it to Nutters round. So thank you, Kelly. Over to Ashley.
Wow, Kelly, you are involved in so many things. I don't know how you have time to do things for yourself, but do you have any hobbies and interests that you do use in your free time, if you have any?
I do have free time. I mean, I don't know if anyone's heard the saying, if you need something done, give it to a busy person. And as a busy person, I'm offended by that, and at the same time, I understand it. So I would say from a hobby perspective, I love to read. I will read just about anything. One of my second jobs, or I don't remember what number it was, I worked at a bookstore, so I will read literally anything. I love to hike, although I don't really get much of that in Texas. It's more the rolling hills. So it's a leisurely walk in Texas more than a hike.
Yeah.
And travel, although again, travel is a little bit restricted with COVID at the moment. So I'm planning out all of the places that I want to go. The problem is there's too many, so the list just keeps getting longer.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that one. Are there a few that are on the top of your list that you're going to go to once things open up a little bit more?
Yes. So on my bucket list, and this may be a little bit strange, I really want to go caving in Madagascar. And the reason for that is because of a National Geographic story that I saw years ago. And so it's always been at the top of my list, but something I've never been able to cross off. So that one for sure. And otherwise, I mean, my most immediate destination once I can travel is actually to go back up to Canada, because I haven't seen my family in a very long time. So excited to do that.
I can imagine. We kind of chatted before the podcast, and you mentioned that you like food. So what kinds of foods do you like, and what are some of your top restaurants to visit in Texas?
Ooh, So yes, I do love food. There is a saying on my counter in my kitchen that says the best people are the people who love to eat, which I firmly
Yes.
believe. So again, I will try just about anything food-wise once. And in terms of some of my favorites, I'm definitely a sweet tooth. So any sort of chocolate or cake or cookies are a big thing for me. My favorite reward, if you will, or thanks from a proposal that I did was some gentleman who sent me in the mail a bunch of Oreo cookies one day
Oh.
as a thank you, which I was really excited about. And in terms of restaurants, so I live in North Dallas, or just north of Dallas, and so kind of in a little town called Salina, which to anyone who's not familiar with it actually looks like Selena, but it's pronounced Salina. And there is an amazing barbecue restaurant. Lots of barbecue restaurants in Texas, but there's an amazing barbecue restaurant just up the road from us. I don't even remember the name of it right now. But I'm a big barbecue fan. My husband, not so much, but I will drag him there. And then the other thing that is amazing in Texas is we have some really good Tex-Mex. So for anyone who's a big queso fan, there's a ton of places around here that have really good queso. And one of my favorites with my friends is to go to a place called the Blue Goose Cantina. We'll get some queso and margaritas and hang out. Although again, that's kind of restricted right now, but
Yeah.
but that's one of my favorites.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I hope that you get out there soon once things calm down a little bit with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So also I understand, do you own some dogs?
I do, yes. I have 2 puppies, and I call them puppies even though they're full grown. I have a 7-year-old that is a miniature pinscher pug mix. So it's actually, it's called a Carlin pincer. So essentially, if you picture a Rottweiler and then shrink it down to about 20 pounds, that's what he looks like. His name is Tungsten, because my husband is a nerd who named him after an element on the periodic table. And then we also have a rescue that is a Lab Whippet cross, and who is an absolute sweetheart that we got a couple years ago.
Oh my goodness.
And actually, fun fact for everyone, this is my memory for weird things. If anyone is looking to adopt a dog, I highly encourage you to adopt a black dog, because strangely, they are likely to be in shelters much longer. Like my dog, compared to most of them, was in the shelter for about 8 months, which is heartbreaking. But there's a little plug for going to your local animal shelter.
Yes, absolutely. Rescues are the best for sure. So we're moving on to the random rapid fire part of the round. Don't think too hard. If you don't have an answer, it's okay. Spout something out and we'll move on. Okay, so what was your favorite toy when you were a kid?
I was a big stuffed animal fan, and my grandpa, when I was younger, got me a little panda that was a stuffed animal, and I dragged that thing everywhere.
No. Do you have any nicknames?
I do. My mom calls me Mouse. I have no idea why, to be honest, but she has always called me Mouse.
That's so cute. If you could, we kind of went over this. So you mentioned one place that you would go in the world. Any other places you could go if you could go right now?
Italy for my husband and I. We got married 2 years ago. It was actually our wedding anniversary yesterday.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. So we had planned to go to Italy last year as kind of a delayed honeymoon, but we have yet to get there. So that is definitely on the list.
Yes, well, I hope you get there soon. What is something that you've tried that you'll never, ever try again?
CrossFit. I know there's like a cult out there of CrossFit people, so don't at me with your hate. But for me, I loved parts of it, but other parts I just generally is not my thing. I'm not a big weightlifter, and I know some people love that. It just is not my thing, and I think it's partly because I have a really bad back, so that makes me sound really old right now, but that's that's okay. I tried it. It's just, it doesn't align to what I love doing. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. There are parts of it that are appealing to me, like the body weight stuff and, you know, the pull-ups to your waist and things like that. Those seem like fun things to try, but I have no interest in lifting huge heavy weights and doing
I'm just,
things like
honestly, I
that.
just keep picturing it like falling on top of me, and that's because of my clumsiness. So I'm like, I will just preserve myself and stay away from that.
Yes, definitely. What song do you sing only when you're alone, and what memory does it bring to you?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I don't know that I only sing it when I'm alone. I do sing mostly to annoy my mother. I don't know if that's if you get a thread through here. Generally, I do things to embarrass people or to annoy other people, because I find it funny, which is a little bit masochistic. But I don't even remember what it is. Not Bohemian Rhapsody, but it's one of the Queen songs where they sing like "Mama" really loudly.
Yes.
So to annoy my mother, I will start singing that song at her. She laughs, but I used to do it all the time.
Oh my gosh, I can just picture you doing that. And I don't know what your mom looks like, but I have a vivid picture of what I believe her to look like right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She is also, if it helps, my mom is also a teacher. And so she has that like teacher disappointed face down pat. And so she just gives you that and you're like, oh, I'm in trouble.
Oh my goodness. Oh. So what would the world be like if it was filled with male and female copies of you?
Oh Lord. I feel like that would be a little bit terrifying. I'm a little OCD. Not fully OCD. I like being very organized.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like the world would be very organized, but at the same time, a little bit overly stressed.
And everyone would be doing out to annoy each other, right?
Yes, this is true. This is true. But I will say it's out of love. It's out of love.
So if you were attending a Halloween party, what would your costume be and why?
That one's a tough one. I'm not really a big Halloween person. Mostly I just like to eat the candy.
Mm-hmm.
So given that, I would probably say something along the lines of like an M&M. You know those giant M&M suits that you can get? I would probably be one of those because I like the candy, and it would also mean I would be super comfy.
That's great. So what is something you have that is of sentimental value?
Something of sentimental value. I have actually sitting right behind me in my desk, my dad, for my wedding present, gave us these little German statues. They've been in the family for a long time. I don't really have a lot of knickknacks because I like a clean kind of space, but those are one of the things that I do have. And it's because it goes back to my grandma and my great grandma, and they're just cute little German statues. I have no idea what the significance of them are, but they're all playing a little instrument and they're really cute.
Aw. If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume that you had done?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like they would be more shocked than anything. I am very much a rule follower. My husband is the opposite of that. So I think they would probably assume that Paul did something, my husband, and I was either taking the blame or he roped me into it. Is probably what they would think.
Oh my goodness. So who haven't you seen or talked to in a while and hope they're doing okay?
Haven't I seen or talked to in a while? I have some I would say some friends in Vancouver. You know, with the pandemic, I find I will Zoom chat with people or FaceTime or whatever, and text, but it's not the same. And so I have some really good friends in Vancouver that I've texted back and forth with. One in particular who got engaged since I've seen her, and is actually pregnant right
Oh.
now. And
Oh
so,
my gosh.
yeah, I would love to go up and give her a hug. And so I think
Yeah.
that's the one thing that I would really love to do. Not even so much chat with someone, but there's a few people out there that I feel like I would really love to give a hug to.
Yeah, I think so many people can relate to that sentiment at this moment.
Yeah, exactly, right.
So you mentioned a few really influential people over the course of your career. So we're just curious, who are those people who have been the most influential in your life and in your career?
I will say, so I feel like I've been really lucky, to be honest. There's been a really good string of great people that I've run into, both from a leader perspective, and just people I've worked with. And so I already talked about my very first manager who got me involved in APMP.
Mhm.
I've had some really incredible managers at GE,
Mhm.
and a mentor at GE. My mentor here she was our chief marketing officer for a while,
Mhm.
and now she's our chief diversity officer. And she's had such a positive impact on my career and the direction that I'm going, both from her, just from speaking to her, getting the opportunity to understand her career and some of the guidance and things that she's passed on to me, as well as she's been an incredible sponsor for me. I
Mhm.
wouldn't be a part of the Women's Network without her sponsorship, and gotten some of the opportunities that I have without her. And same
Mhm.
thing with my current manager. He is just a wonderful influence in terms of his willingness to share and support me in the things that I'm doing. So I've been incredibly lucky with mentors and people that have influenced my career. But I would also say, from a personal standpoint, my husband is my favorite person in the world.
Oh.
And he is also one of the most brilliant people that I've ever met. And so anytime I have a problem or an issue, he will sit down with me and talk it through. And so I would say, not just from a professional life, but also from a personal life perspective, I've been incredibly lucky.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It sounds like you have some amazing people in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so on a kind of similar note of having amazing people around you, what have you observed lately that has reminded you that people are good?
I think so. I am very much a glass half full person,
Mm.
as my husband would say. So generally, I do tend to take the more positive look or view of the world.
Mhm.
But more specifically, the one that comes to mind for me is with the Women's Network at Digital. I mentioned we're doing this effort called GE Girls, which is
Mhm.
working with a number of middle schools throughout the US to do a virtual STEM camp, which has been really interesting. But the reason it comes to mind for saying that people are good is when we started discussing it with the people running it, and kind of starting as they started taking the lead, they weren't sure that they would get volunteers. And now it's at the point where they are overwhelmed with volunteers because people want to help.
Mhm.
The minute you reach out to someone and say, hey, do you have this skill with something like JavaScript? Or, hey, have you heard of this initiative? The team needs help. There's been so many people that have raised their hand to say, I would love to help with that. And so I think outside of that, it just gives me that message that if you're willing to raise your hand and say, hey, I need a bit of help, there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help you.
Oh, that's so amazing. So many people around you that are so positive and volunteering and doing so many great things. Who is the kindest person that you know?
My husband. My husband is the
Mm.
kindest person I know. And I say that, and he hates when I tell this story, but so one of the very first dates that we went on, I think we had to stop at Walmart because we were picking up something. And there was a lady in front of him who couldn't afford all of her groceries. And so she put a few things back. And so he quickly whipped out his money and paid for them, and
Mm.
then tucked them into her basket without saying anything. And she saw it, and she turned around and she said, are you sure? And he was like, everyone deserves some bacon, because one of those items was bacon. So he made it a very little deal, but you could tell to her that it was a very big deal. And so my husband is absolutely the kindest person that I know, because that is not the only incident that he did that. He's done things very similar to that. And it just reminds me what a kind person he is.
Oh my gosh, what a lovely story. So you've said so many positive things about other people, and you have so many great people around you. What is one personal trait that you like most about yourself?
One personal trait. I would honestly, back to the conversation we just had, is that I do tend to look on the positive side. I'm not someone who, when bad things happen, I don't concentrate on the fact that that person or that scenario was a bad thing. I do tend to try to focus on what can we learn from it, or recognize that we may not know the scenario or the experiences behind that person and what they're experiencing. And so taking a slightly more positive spin on it. Long time ago, I don't remember who mentioned it to me, but they said the line, when you're interacting with people, you have to take the most respectable interpretation. And that has always stuck with me, that you don't know what's going on in someone else's life, and they may have completely positive intentions to you, even if something doesn't turn out that way. And so you have to take your own time to think more intentionally about things. And so I would say that's one thing that I appreciate about myself.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And just something that so many of us can keep in mind when we're interacting with those around us, to just pause and think and take that perspective. That's amazing. So you are, a 40 under 40 last year. You've achieved so much in your career. And we have such, a crazy profession, right? What is one common myth about our profession that you would like to debunk?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Myth about the profession. I would say, I don't know if it's a myth necessarily, but maybe an interpretation that sometimes some sales or some particular people that we work with fall into, is all we're doing is putting together some pretty standard content and getting it out the door. I would say what I make a significant effort at our business to do, and I hope across the industry, is to really correct that impression. Because one of the messages that I give to our sales team globally all the time, I do, and my team does, is we see more deals on a monthly basis than some of them will see in a year. And so my message to them is, use that. We see what is working from a pricing perspective. We see what's working against certain competitors. We see what's not working in terms of the way that we're speaking about things or demoing our own software. And so what I would say is, use the knowledge of the people who are doing those proposals in a broader fashion. Pull them into business development, pull them into pricing conversations if they're not already part of it, pull them into negotiations, because we can help. Even if you don't want us to speak or have that customer facing presence, because not all salespeople are comfortable with that. Use that to your advantage. That's what I would say, is use us beyond just the proposal itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Proposal professionals, we see so much, and sometimes, you're right, we are undervalued and not taken, not utilized to the benefit of the organization. So what is one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
So back to one of those first experiences at APMP, I will say I learned this very early, is the fact that other people are experiencing what you do. I think that's incredibly valuable, knowing that you're not the only person who is struggling to get content, or is struggling to get really good custom content or competitive analysis, or whatever you're working on. You're not the only person struggling with that. We're all working on the same problem, and I guarantee no one has solved it yet. And so I think knowing that is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You mentioned, kind of one of your mantras earlier, and kind of advice that you've received that kind of has helped you progress. What is another piece of advice that you've received, and who gave that to you?
So another piece of advice that I live by, and this goes back to some of my favorite parts of the job that Bhaskar mentioned at the beginning, was a previous manager at GE who said to me when we were talking through some of my development areas, she said, by just doing something, are you taking the opportunity away from someone else to learn? And I know for those of us in the proposal session, and I'm sure outside of it, sometimes just getting the work done because you have so much on your to-do list is needed. Mm-hmm. However, are you really taking away that opportunity for someone else to learn and grow? And that has always stuck with me, because one of my if you've ever done one of those 5 strengths finders, one of my strengths is that I'm a learner and I want to take something new from every single day. And that kind of put me on my heels a little bit. And that's something I have constantly in the back of my mind now, is I want to make sure that I'm sharing and not just doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Such amazing advice. And what a great mantra. So you have achieved so much, and you are still quite young. We are curious, what is next for you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, lots to look forward to. One, I love my company, so there's tons of opportunity to stay at my company. But for me, in terms of development and where I want to go, I want to share how we as a team have incorporated Lean into proposals. And so one of the things on my to-do list is to write up a series of articles about how you can incorporate Lean and approach it in the proposal industry and kind of improving your process. And so that's something that's upcoming for me, although I've started, I keep getting distracted. That's something I hope to do. And I also mentioned with APMP, getting more involved in the chapter. Although I'm one of the co-chairs of the Lone Star chapter, I want to do more outreach. I want to get more involved in both our chapter and into the global chapter, and kind of reach back out, set up some of those relationships. And especially for those who are looking at 2022, I believe the conference is going to be in Dallas, the global conference. So looking forward to contributing to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many of us are ready to travel and see our colleagues, and we really are missing those in-person conferences.
Yeah, exactly.
So Kelly, is there anything that you had wanted to touch on today that we haven't kind of covered in the podcast?
No, I don't think so. I think this is great. I appreciate the opportunity, guys.
Yeah, this has been so amazing. We thank you so much for your time today. It's really been a privilege to have you with us here at Scribble Talk. We wish you all the good health and happiness. Please continue to inspire bid and proposal industry colleagues, everyone else around you, your family, and all the wonderful, kind people you have in your life. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane.
You as well. Thanks, guys.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundaram,
signing off.